as we stand on the cusp of 2026, reflecting on the year 2025, we find ourselves amid a period of turbulence and transformation. Three critical issues many are watching: the lasting impact of the tariff wars, the rise of artificial intelligence, and the future of global governance. Today, we gather a panel from different continents with different expertise. Let's hear their thoughts. Joining us in Beijing, Zhao Hai, Director of the International Political Study with the National Institute for Global Strategy. In Jakarta, Indonesia, Ibrahim Khalilur Rahman, Head of the Indonesia Financial Group, Progress, and a lecturer at the Graduate School of Sustainable Development University from Indonesia. In São Paulo, in Brazil, Gilson Schwartz, Professor of Economics with the University of São Paulo. And in Beijing, again, Ben Norton, Editor-in-Chief with Geopolitical Economy Report. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us, and Happy New Year to every one of you and your loved ones. Let me begin by asking you about what we witnessed and experienced together in the year 2025 and what they might mean for us for this year, 2026. Now, Hai, go to you about the tariff war. That certainly is the biggest phrase for the year. From the very beginning till the end, how do you see the roller coaster of tariff war and its impact on the economies and geopolitics?
Well, I think despite the up and downs of the tariff, particularly coming out of the United States, overall, I think this year the tariff has changed the global trading system and the global supply chain. The impact is going to be permanent, and I think the influence will be long-lasting. We will feel this in the coming years. Two major things happened. Number one is trading shift. There's a lot of trade that's now no longer happen between the North and South, but among South and South, between South and South countries. And supply chain has been rerouting, and there's a lot of transshipment in order to avoid high tariff in developed countries, especially the United States. And also, on top of that, you can see that because of tariff, the supply chain has been shorter, tightened, and you have a growing sense of regionalized trading system instead of a global trading system. WTO has been weakened, and there's more and more demand for an alternative trading system that will have a better economic growth effect instead of the temporary weakened, chaotic, fragmented trading system.
Is that also what you're feeling, Ibrahim Rahman?
So 2025 was about survival, I would say. We dream of having much more progress in the manufacturing sector, having some expectations that China will be growing and the United States will be yet another market that we can penetrate. But then with the tension and with the tariff increase, it has been hitting us a lot, especially in manufacturing sector. And I'm sure it's not only on Indonesia, but also some countries in ASEAN region, such as in Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand, for instance. So we would like to more diversify in terms of manufacturing and towards deviating from mining sectors, which are currently the most important aspect in our export product. But due to different landscape, as Dr. Zohai mentions, it changed the story, completely in 2025.
What about for Latin America and South America? Gilson, you're there. Tell me more about what has this tariff war meant for your region, and how is it likely to continue for this year, 2026?
I would use a neologism. I would call it gangstanomics. So it's really about breaking the rules and committing crimes, even interfering in legal and political issues in different countries. It's a war economy, it's an economy of war. It's also a very clear breakdown of a global system that was gradually developing over the post-war period. So it's an age of uncertainty and of, I would say, gangsterism, because that kind of approach is very close to criminal procedures, is very close to just break the rules, use force. And whatever comes out, the strongest will win. So it's not really a new age or a new era or new rules. It's just about breaking the rules and getting to know who survives, not only economically, but also politically.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? From the very beginning, there has been a lot of threats verbally and also uh, throwing out large tariff numbers. However, at the end of the year, we are seeing quite a series of bilateral negotiations between the United States, which started the tariff war, and many other economies. Ben, what do you make of this roller coaster, so to speak, and what does that mean for people's preparedness of what to come in this year, 2026?
Well, I think the Trump administration learned very quickly that the tariffs blew back and actually hurt the US economy more than they hurt some other economies, especially China. One of the main reasons that President Trump came to this agreement in Busan, South Korea last year was a recognition implicitly that actually the US was hurting economically, and Trump is very concerned about the 2026 midterm elections coming up this year. And this is why there are reports that Trump is now considering imposing more tariffs next year in 2027. So I think what we're seeing is that the US administration recognized that the US economy is more dependent than it thought. And another very important factor here is that if you look at the impact of these tariffs on the US economy, they've already been quite damaging. For instance, Goldman Sachs economists estimated that 55% of the cost of these tariffs is actually falling on the average consumer in the US. They're paying for slightly over half of the tariff. And then US importers and US companies are paying the majority, the rest of the other part of the tariff. And we've also seen very stagnant growth in the US. Really, the only reason there is growth is because of AI capital expenditure. Economically, I think the Trump administration recognized that it had to take a step back. And it also recognized that the uncertainty surrounding the tariffs did not lead to companies investing in manufacturing and reindustrializing the US.
Right. So I think it's legitimate to ask what to come for the year 2026. We're already on the very first day of this.
Let me say, even though the overall Trump tariff is lower than what most economists expected, however, the overall tariff still remain at a very high level post-World War II. That's number one. Number two, that later on, Trump administration think about many ways try to reduce tariff in order to avoid further inflation within the United States. That's causing affordability problems. And the other thing is that there's a complication of tariff regimes. Before the Trump tariff coming in, the so-called reciprocal tariff, there's a very simple tariff regime. You're either under most favored nations, WTO rule, or you have bilateral or multilateral or regional trade agreement.
Yeah.
However, now you have very complicated tariff regime, and particularly small and medium businesses having a hard time getting through this maze of tariff. So that increased uncertainty in overall investment in the United States.
Ibrahim, Rahman, and Gilson, both of your economies, Brazil and Indonesia, are large economies globally and also having tremendous resource when it comes to natural resources. So how are you on the sideline of this, witnessing what is going on between China and the United States and thinking about what's the next stage when it comes to world trade rules and how your economy is likely to survive it and even thrive it?
With respect to natural resources and what looks like a strength in our region, we have just come out of the summit, the global summit on climate change, and that was, I would say, a little bit of a failure. And I think that we have, of course, as a result of the US going away from the negotiating table, we have that kind of situation where climate change is so important. It affects so many economic sectors. It affects even, agriculture very badly because
Sure.
climate change impacts the conditions for agricultural producers. But we also see a very strong resumption of very aggressive measures by food producers. And alongside with the climate change failure, we see the European Union and the Mercosur agreement also going sore. So it's really difficult. And I also want to stress that the weaponization of trade cannot be dissociated from the weaponization and the geopolitical factors that affect the region.
2025 taught us a lot on the art of negotiation. It is very interesting that, I mean, not all countries are like China, who is very strong and capable of doing retaliation with the United States. Other countries like Indonesia or Vietnam, we were probably the first or the second patient coming to Washington, D.C. to clarify what to do. And then it is quite interesting that while we are probably more proactive, we were hit by the higher tariff compared to those who did not, do anything. So basically, it is quite interesting whether responding to Trump, whether we have to be active or we just silent and just wait that it does, change eventually. Trump tariff has deteriorating the learning curve, which has been started by all ASEAN countries for many, many years. Vietnam, for instance, has started to be more into manufacturing during the last decades, and they are starting to be very efficient. They are building, close relationship with China manufacturing, China
Yeah.
economy, and then all of a sudden they are hit by 40% due to greater local content in their manufacturing. So it is very unfair for developing countries to be hit by something we didn't expect before. It is very interesting that Trump never ever talked about trade in ICT or in digital products. What he focused is merely on goods and common commercial product. Because when we are talking about digital product, basically all countries are experiencing negative deficits with United States. But the US is never interested to talk about that because they just want to destroy all the manufacturing, all the economic establishment which has been started little by little by our own economy. So 2026 will be very interesting to see how far this will be impacting.
Economies around the world are very much openly focused on national interests and, shall I say, some on national interests alone. So when it comes to trade and the next page of trade for the year 2026, what could that mean to all of us, Ben?
I agree. I think the reason that we see multiple countries taking this more protectionist approach is because of the United States. I mean, the US is at the center of the global trading and financial system. So when we see such major disruptions, it forces other countries to take measures as well. And certainly, Europe often goes along with the United States. But if you look at most countries in the global south, I think they've been speaking out very clearly, criticizing this attempt by the US-led West, primarily the US, to change the rules of this international framework. Many global south countries are fine with, continuing deepening their integration, bilateral trade with China and other countries in the global south. This is why we see so much more discussion of South-South integration.
Of course, everything is so hard to predict, but there's at least one thing that we know. AI, artificial intelligence, is going to play a bigger role in our lives. Now, Ben, to you, we have seen two different approaches between China and the United States when it comes to artificial intelligence. One more is reaching for the star type, at least for the year 2025. The other, China, for example, is more AI plus, meaning trying to instill the AI possibilities into all fields of the economy and society. Two different approaches. Do you see there's also likely to be diverse ways for this year, Ben?
In the case of China, China is integrating AI technology into everyday life, into automated factories and manufacturing, and it's using AI as a tool much more effectively. In the US, the focus is on developing AI as quickly as possible and reaching this goal of AGI, artificial general intelligence, although some experts doubt whether or not that will be on the horizon in the near future. And also, I think there's another huge factor here, which is that Chinese companies developing AI have largely released their models open source, which is a game changer for many countries, especially in the global south, because this means that in a developing country, if a company wants to use AI models, they don't have to pay very high costs to use these models from a US company that would charge a lot of money. They can use these open source models and develop their own applications in their own framework. That is absolutely significant, which means that I think Chinese models will be more widely adopted around the world, even if these Chinese models are not cutting edge at the highest level. In the US, there's been a big discussion of how, even though the US may be leading in the most high-end level, not with actually the application of AI, but in the development of AI technology. One of the big bottlenecks in the US is the energy grid, the electricity grid is already at its limit. So this is becoming a very big issue in the US. Electricity prices are skyrocketing for average people, whereas China has invested so much in expanding its electrical capacity, and this is a major advantage for China in the near future.
Gilson, to you, how do you see the general trend of artificial intelligence, especially its application? What does that mean for your country?
Well, for us right now, sovereignty is the key word. So we're talking about national interests, we're talking about the social good, and we're talking about energy and environmental resources. I would say that the AI challenge is basically a regulatory challenge. It's a matter of regulating, of keeping very clear the social good as a horizon, no matter what kind of business model is involved. And three areas here are really key. I would say health, wealth, and stealth. With health, it's clear that it's impossible to make breakthroughs in medicine, in healthcare, using AI as such. Healthcare, the development of new drugs, new medicine, that really depends on clinical tests that must go through humans, must go through regulatory procedures that take a long time. So there's a contradiction between the speed, the so-called speed of AI development and research, and the fact that it's, in the case of health, it's dependent on human factors. Second element is wealth. That means that not only artificial intelligence, but overall the financial infrastructure is also on the move. And here the key element is social and income power. That means inequality. So far, it's not clear whether AI will bring more or less job opportunities for people with lower or higher skills. It's a discussion. It's going on. It's an ongoing discussion. And digital wealth, especially the crypto world, is one of the other targets of the Trump administration, a total liberalization of the financial framework for digital assets. So that affects wealth distribution. And so far, with educational differences between China and the US, it also depends on the level of education and the skills in each country. And then stealth. What we've seen, especially in the weaponization of AI, what we have seen is really secrecy, weaponization of artificial intelligence, and soft power, new forms of soft power that are related to digital technologies. So instead of creating a lot of information that can be translated into more knowledgeable objectives or more knowledgeable and transparent challenges, what we see is a rise of hate speech, an ongoing crisis of democratic values all over the place.
Now we have certainly seen very different attitudes toward the latest technologies. Ibrahim, your thoughts?
As part of combined agreement between Indonesia, Malaysia, and the US, we have to kind of surrender our cross-border data to the US, which is, for me, it's very crazy. How on earth we cannot control our own data sovereignty under Trump tariff? So, the negotiation that pushed the tariff down to 19% for Indonesia is followed by obligation for us to consult with the US any development on digital technology that we are envisioning in 2026. Indonesia will be more into China type. We have challenges in terms of early warning of a natural disaster, which is currently happening in some part of Indonesia. We are also struggling with empowering a small and medium enterprise. We are also struggling with using technology for distance education and health due to our 16,000 islands connected by the sea. So I think we are more into AI for development rather than AI for technology, so that we are more into how copying how China can be using this AI for more useful usability for people at large.
Earlier, we have seen the AI action plan coming out of the United States. Earlier in December 2025, there's also the national policy framework of AI, soliciting more power to the central level rather than at the local level in the United
State
States.
level.
So that certainly creates a lot of interesting discussions there. China, meanwhile, has put forward its own AI action plan over the years. There are also in detailed regulations coming out. How much do you see these two are similar or different from one another? Is it creating space for joint governance of artificial intelligence to a certain extent, at least? Hi.
So far, I think the competition side is, I think, the most important side on both in both countries. The United States, the Trump administration is really trying to release the power of AI and gathering all of government effort to promote AI development, and also trying to basically clamp down on state level regulations so that they can concentrate on the federal level and allowing AI to develop without local impediment. On the Chinese side, I think the Chinese government also realized the importance of AI and also have policies to facilitate the AI development. However, just like, let's say, one other thing that this year also had a great leap forward, which is the crypto. If you compare the crypto regulations, it's similar to AI, that the US is having a very deregulated approach, and China is having a very strictly regulated approach, emphasize security, sovereignty, the usage, and particularly contain the impact of using these new technologies. On AI, I think the Chinese government is monitoring its effect on labor markets, on the capital market, on the application of the AI further. I think in the future, you will see very different approaches in the United States, in China, and also in EU and other countries that are taking a different emphasis on different aspects of AI development.
China put forward its suggestion on global governance for the year 2025, Global Governance Initiative. We have seen tremendous discussion as a result of fragmented world where the global governance is heading for, including on artificial intelligence. Now, Gilson and Ibrahim, Ben, what are your readings?
Sure. So global governance, of course, should ensure that all countries have level playing field, as we already develop our policy since long before. What is currently happening now is, as Gilson mentioned, killing what we have started already in many aspects in digital development in Indonesia, digital development in Vietnam, in Malaysia, the requirement for us to surrender all of the data requirement to the US, and then they kill our quick response in terms of payment system in Indonesia and other countries. I think this unfairness thing should be stopped, and somebody should be able to collaborate the South power so that we can empower ourselves in terms of better global good governance.
So Gilson, go to you. Your thoughts, global governance as a whole.
Well, yeah, I think that we are still going to see this year in 2026 a crisis in global governance. I don't see it with optimism. What may lead us out of these contradictions between the attempt of the Trump administration to become the new hegemon, what may lead us out of this really is the idea or the possibility, the ongoing process of South-South relations. And here, China is clearly leading the way in terms of discourse, or in terms of narrative, in terms of actions, in terms also of creating the financial sustainability that is required in order to achieve governance.
Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think China's proposal of the Global Governance Initiative has been very important. And I noticed that many countries in the Global South immediately joined it and endorsed it because there's so much interest around the world to try to strengthen multilateral organizations and reform them so they truly are more representative and multilateral. So the solution has to be the countries of the Global South, which make up the majority of the population, coming together. And that's why I think China's leadership has been so important in making these multilateral bodies truly multilateral, defending international law, and making these bodies more representative of the Global South.
A lot to watch, certainly, for the year 2026. Thank you so much for all of you joining us. And thank you for your insights. May the year 2026 be a peaceful and a prosperous one for everyone. Thank you, Hai, Ibrahim, Gilson, Ben. Appreciate it.